Okay, welcome to the audio editing unit, my personal favorite unit. We're going to start things off with mixing some Beatles, but you can see up on the screen there a whole bunch of different things. Even if you're not really into recording and audio mixing like I am, if you're more into the movie side of things or the video editing side of things, sound tracking, sound engineering are huge for video, and you need to kind of know the basics of mixing in order to be able to do those. So, at the time, I was watching the Beatles Get Back when I put this all together, so that's why there's, at least at the start, a little bit of a Beatles theme here. Now, yeah, see, I mentioned it there. They talk in their recording about recording to an 8-track and a 4-track, and this big thing over here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, was kind of like the things that they recorded on. Now we can record 4 tracks so much quicker and so much easier, and I'll show you how. They might have had to, you can see this big mixing console that they were working on too. They might have had to do sub mixes if they were only able to isolate 2 4 tracks, kind of like that. And this would be a tape recording, where now we do a lot of stuff digitally. There is kind of 3 steps to recording, overview steps, like high level steps. The first one is the actual recording. We're not really going to worry about that as much for this. However, as you progress in audio, you're not always going to be given all the tracks unless your job ends up being just to mix music, which some people just do that part of it. But recording, when we're recording, we want to try and isolate sounds as much as we can. So if we look at this band in the picture, I would want one audio track that is just the bass. I would want one audio track that is just this guitar. Now, I'm saying one, sometimes people get multiple. If you notice down here, he's got what looks like 2 amps. So maybe I want 2 bass tracks. And there's a couple microphones here, so maybe 2 or 3 guitar tracks. But I want the guitar separate from the bass so I can play with the audio levels. Same with the drums. Sometimes there's a sub mix for the drums, which means someone else mixed it and they give you just one drum track. This is how they want it. Sometimes you're gonna get a snare, a bass drum, possibly they mic all the toms, a couple overhead mics, so you could have a whole ton of different tracks here. We're gonna play with a couple that are from the video game Rock Band, and maybe some actual audio stems or multi-tracks from the band's actual recording sessions. But some of these already have some of the parts sub-mixed, so it won't be quite as hard as getting 12 just drum tracks and having to put the drums together. On this next slide, so we talked about a 4-track. We've got this little podcaster in class. So if we want to do podcasting, what's super cool about this is you connect 4 microphones. This one has the input gain for each of them. You can hook up 4 headphones so 4 different people can be listening. And you're recording 4 microphones separately onto their own channels. All this tech down into this little thing here. This whole 8-track recorder we can now do digitally on this one thing. It's about this big here. Actually, it's all hooked up. I've got one there. 16. It says 16-track recording. You can only do 8 simultaneously, and then you'd have to dump them and do 8 more. But some really cool stuff. So if you are, there's a couple ways to record too. Some people record a band in a room, and you want to you're filling up all 8 of those tracks. You can actually they call it daisy chain it and connect a USB to 2 of them and record 16 tracks simultaneously. Some people want to do that. Some people want to layer it, so they put together the drums. A lot of solo artists do this. They put together the drums. They add on top the bass. They add on top the guitar. They add on top the synth. So there's a bunch of different ways for recording too. What we're going to mainly focus on is the editing part. In the back we've got, this is either GarageBand or Pro Tools. They're almost the same thing. This one is our Audition that we're going to look at today. And even things like, this is a free one called Audacity, has got a lot of these same things that we're going to look at today. So if we get the basics in Audition, even though some people use Audition, but it doesn't have all the neat like MIDI instruments that Logic X or something like that has. So most people don't use Audition when they're creating. They use something like this. This will give us all the same controls and ideas as using something like Logic X. We're going to do kind of spreading out our mix. These are a bunch of things that we're going to look at when we import our stuff. First thing is when we download the Beatles music, we got to figure out what's going on here. Now sometimes the files are named really nicely, sometimes they're not named really nicely. So I might need to listen through and say, okay, I know what's on this track. I know what's on this track. Then the next trick is panning. So panning talks about we've got a left ear, right ear, that's stereo. If it's the same thing in both ears, that's mono. So we can pan stuff. And if you look at these diagrams, these are panning or mixing diagrams. The stuff that is further to the back has got an effect called reverb on them. The stuff, or it may have natural reverb on it. The stuff that is closer up in the mix, or it could be louder in the mix. And depending upon if it's right or left, it's what ear we're hearing it in. So a lot of the time, this is how popular music is mixed. We're going to look at automation, and we're going to look at adding some effects. Ooh, and I can't forget exporting our final product here. So we are going to work on this track here. I think it's called With a Little Help. It could be called something else. That's what they say a lot in it. And we're going to mix some Beatles. There it will be posted some other cool videos, and there'll be a whole ton of different songs. These are the ones that I had in 2021, maybe 2022. There might be more now that you can even mix. Okay, and there's some slides that go with it too that you'll be able to submit with your stuff. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump into actually mixing.